OK, we've got some breaking news to bring you. This coming from the England cricket team just 2 days before the start of the one-day series against Pakistan. Our reporter James Cole joins us now. James, good morning to you. What can you tell us?
Yes, the ECB have just released a statement which says the entire England cricket team are isolating after 7 members of the squad tested positive for COVID. Now, those 7 members include 3 players and 4 members of management staff. I'll read you the statement, which has just been published. The ECB says, following PCR tests administered yesterday on Monday in Bristol, the ECB can confirm 7 members, 3 players and 4 management team members of the England ODI party have tested positive for COVID. In collaboration with Public Health England, Public Health Wales and Bristol Local Health Authority, those impacted will now observe a period of self-isolation from July the 4th, following the UK government's protocol on quarantine. The remaining members of the party have been deemed close contacts and they too will isolate. The ECB have confirmed that the one-day series and the T20 series against Pakistan will go ahead. Ben Stokes will return to England duties and captain the squad, which will be named in the next few hours. So just to pick the bones out of that, England's entire squad are in isolation after 7 members tested positive. The one-day series, though, does go ahead. So Ben Stokes, who broke his finger at the IPL, he's been recovering from that. He hasn't been part of the white ball setup for the Sri Lanka series. He's available to play. He'll captain the team. I'm just trying to think who else might be available. Alex Hales hasn't been part of the white ball team since he failed recreational doping tests in 2019. He could be called up. If he's not called up, you wonder if he's ever going to be called up. Dawood Malan was part of the one-day team, the white ball team, but he left the camp for personal reasons midway through the Sri Lanka series. He may be available, and then it's just fringe players. But the ECB are confident that the one-day and T20 series can still go ahead. Just to give you a bit of sort of context to this in terms of England's protocols, they haven't been observing as tight a bio bubble this summer as they did last summer when we were in the heat of that first wave. Then they were at hotels and cricket grounds in Southampton and Manchester and very much isolated to the team hotels and the biosecure environment. During this one-day series, it's been a bit different. They've had a COVID officer. So in Cardiff, for example, they could walk around Cardiff Bay. But then when they moved to Durham, because of a higher transmission rate in the northeast, they weren't allowed to go to cafes and restaurants. Restrictions were a lot tighter. But essentially in Bristol, I would imagine, because that is, again, you're sort of in the southwest, aren't you, near Cardiff, they may have had freer reign and fewer restrictions. But clearly, somehow, this COVID variant, which is far more transmissible, isn't it, we've seen than previous variants, has got into the camp, and now the entire team is isolating. And it brings into question as well, I guess, how we move forward now with elite sport, because society is moving freely. We're now, as the vaccine rollout continues and nears completion, we're now looking at ways of living with COVID and managing with COVID. But elite sport still have to isolate. Elite sport is still having to deal with what happens when COVID gets into the camp. So this is a big moment now for the ECB, but I think also elite sport and how we move forward from this. But just to recap, England will name an entire new squad for their one-day series against Pakistan, the ODI series. And later today, Ben Stokes will be captain. We'll bring that to you as soon as we get it here on Sky Sports News.
James, thanks ever so much for that update for now. So as James mentioned there, England's ODI series against Pakistan starts on Thursday in Cardiff. That is almost immediately followed by 3 T20 games. And it's less than a month until the start of a 5-match test series against India. So big breaking news, as you can see at the bottom of your screen. And Ben Stokes is to captain England. The revised squad, as James mentioned, will be announced later on, which we'll bring you here on Sky Sports News. We can get much more reaction now and speak to former England captain and Sky Sports pundit Nasser Hussain. Nasser, thanks for joining us. Just to start with, how concerning is this?
Well, I think, first of all, we could say it shows how well England have done and the ECB have done over the last 15 months or so during COVID times to keep it out of a bubble, whether it be a completely tight bubble, as James said, there's something that's been eased slightly. And I think they had to ease that bubble slightly. The cricketers have been going around the world in bubbles, and just for the sake of their mental health, when they turn up to a ground and see normal society out there doing things and being relaxed slightly. I think that's what they had to do with their players. It's got in the camp, and now they will have to react. It will cause chaos because obviously they have to pick a completely different squad. That's 16 players and then backroom staff and coaches ruled out. They're going to have to pull the bulk of those players out of county cricket. There's a round of county championship games going on now, and all those counties will have to replace those players and get them tested. And, the players that are pulled out will have to get to Cardiff and get tested to enter the bubble. So it will be absolute chaos at ECB Towers right now. But it does go to show how well elite sport and the ECB have done so far.
And Nasser, there is such a busy schedule coming up. Just how disruptive will this be with that?
It will be disruptive, but English cricket can handle it a little bit better because of the depth, especially to their white ball squad. I mean, it's always been said, I think one of the players said last year, I think it was Sam Billings, said the white ball team is one of the hardest in the world to get into. But because they have so much depth, then I think they will handle it and cope. And the side that they put out on Thursday at Cardiff against Pakistan will be a pretty good side, to be honest. I mean, I've done some names here. Stokes as captain. I think Butler and Pope are still injured. They're not playing in the county championship at the moment. Milan is away for personal reasons, but you could go James Vince, Zach Crawley, Ben Duckett, Harry Brook, Dan Lawrence, Parkinson, Hayne, Mahmood, Jack, Salt, Bracey, Cox, even Anderson and Broad might get a call up. Craig Overton. There's a lot of young, talented, or youngish talented white ball cricketers out there.
Yeah, and you mentioned Stokes as captain. What do you make of that decision, Nasser?
I think it's right. He's back playing for Durham, isn't he? He got a couple of wickets yesterday and a brilliant caught and bowl going to his left hand. As long as his finger is fine, and if he's playing for Durham, then they must have made the decision, and he must have made the decision. He's fine. He's not someone. Well, none of these cricketers are someone you risk injury. So if he's fine, he can make that journey. But that's my point. He's playing for Durham at the moment. He'll have to be replaced. I think Ben Duckett is actually batting and is not out 60-odd overnight at Trent Bridge. If he's picked, it will cause a few issues in that game. But, England must always take priority. Pakistan is a huge series. And, it's a great opportunity. Great opportunity for someone to stake a claim.
Nasser, great to get your thoughts on this. Thanks ever so much for joining us this morning.